Hey there, welcome to the Multifamily Mixtape podcast, brought to you by Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Mark Sharp. Multifamily Mixtape is an eclectic podcast as we will discuss any and all things multifamily, from maintenance how-to videos to interviews with industry experts. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, and join me for some campfire-style conversation and maybe a few laughs. Hey everyone, welcome to the Multifamily Mixtape. I am super excited today to have two of my friends with me. I was on my way to Advocate recently, and I'm sitting in the airport, and I open up LinkedIn, and I see Bryan Holiday had posted that there was a brand new podcast coming out with these two gentlemen, and I listened to the little pilot episode. They had an interview with one of our other friends, Betsy Kirkpatrick, and I was just pumped for them because I think this is going to be a really cool opportunity, a really neat, different, fun podcast with these two guys. And so I wanted to have them on to give them an opportunity to talk about their podcast. But let me introduce both of them to you for those of you who do not know. But we have the Director of Legal Operations with Brownlee Whitlow Prate, Todd Whitlow. And then we have the Managing Director for CLTPR Management, and that's Bryan Holiday. And Bryan, you told me to ask you this question, so I'm just going to get right into it. What do you do? What is CLTPR?
Yeah, so it gets confusing because they're like, aren't you with Asheville or aren't you with Fayetteville or didn't I see you in Greenville or didn't? So in 2019, I was working with the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association doing government affairs, working with Ken Szymanski, and I went and started my own company. And when I started my own company in 2019, I started a PR firm based in Charlotte, and I was going to do that work. And then so lo and behold, my first client was the North Carolina Apartment Association. And then my next client was Western Carolina Apartment Association. And then my next client was Fayetteville Apartment Association. So I was like, I have all these apartment associations I'm doing work with and stuff like that. And so about a year ago, I started creating a second subset of my company called CLTPR Management. And so the management piece is what we do is we provide management services for smaller associations and help them out. Anything from like what we're doing with Western and Fayetteville, running the whole show, or sometimes we offer supplemental services like helping an association get on board with Novi or help an association kind of do the email blast or a lot of behind the scenes stuff to allow a one-person show, one-person office to kind of do more of the membership facing stuff and less of the office admin work. So I'm excited that we just added our fourth employee. So
nice. Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
So we have social media, we have communications, and we now have membership services. And we also have accounting services that we offer. So basically, you've heard like the fractional stuff, and that's kind of where we come in and say, hey, how do we fit like what's your need? And we can do a lot of back of the house stuff. So that's what I do. And it's not as fun as being a lawyer, but it is more confusing.
Absolutely. So Todd, tell me, what does a director of legal operations do?
You're kind of like a cat herder. You're making sure all the folks internally in our office are rowing the boat in the same direction. They're all using the same oar. I'm licensed in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. I actually get sworn in Virginia next Wednesday. So we will be adding a fourth state to our portfolio or to our footprint. So it's kind of making sure that there's a standard. And so the state heads of our firm kind of report directly to me. They have a team of managers that they manage, and then those managers then manage junior associates. So it's kind of it is a giant pyramid scheme of legal work that takes place. So that in a nutshell is kind of what I do. I make sure that our team is informed of all the things that are changing within the law. That they are up to date and can advise clients appropriately. And then, as a side benefit to doing all that, I get to sit as general counsel to a number of apartment associations, volunteer on their government affairs committees, and get involved in so hopefully some impact on policy and policy making at the government level.
Nice. So I don't think I've ever heard pyramid scheme and legal in the same sentence, but kudos
Every
to you
enterprise
for.
is really a pyramid scheme
I
at the
mean,
end of the day.
kudos to you for making it work. Like I think that is, I think that is outstanding. So all right, so the reason you're here, the podcast, the Associated, whose idea was it? How did it come up? And like, just tell me, how did the two of you decide to get into this podcasting world?
You want to take it away first, Brian?
Was it beer? Is it that the so? I think the honest conversation was is we were at one of the National Apartment Association conferences and we were drinking and I'm like, I think about doing a podcast. And Todd's like, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And then later it's like, hey, do you think we should do a podcast together? It's like, yeah, that may let's explore that. And I want you to know, it took us a year to actually get together and do the whole thing. But we are so dedicated to this podcast as being co-hosts that Todd shaved to look like me, and I now dress like Todd to look like him. So we are like that in sync on this thing going forward.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was always a fun idea. So, I mean, this is a really way back story. But growing up, at some point in elementary school, you have this thing about what you want to do when you grow up. And ironically enough, I put late night TV show host as what I wanted to do when I grew up because I really liked asking questions. I really like hearing the answer and then building questions off of it. And I was certainly one of those kids who always asked the why question. And then when they answered the why, it wouldn't come with an immediate why. It would be, well, how and what and when. And so I've always been a curious individual. And when Brian and I started talking about this idea or this concept of a podcast, internally within the firm, we were thinking about doing it anyway. And it would have had a terrible name. It would have either been the Toddcast or it would have been Todd Talks until we got sued or a cease and desist letter from TED Talks or some other party. So when Brian said, I'm thinking about doing it, and then even more importantly, when Brian said, I'm going to head up most of the legwork and getting it together, and you can just show up and talk, I was like, where do I sign up? Because I don't know that I can get a gig quite that good anywhere else.
So
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Todd's a talent here. So just so you know, that Todd shows up, he's talent.
Oh, I get it. I understand completely. And what's funny is Todd, I do not know if you'll remember this conversation, but we were at an NAA Apartment Association conference. We were in a hotel bar. I think you and I were both a few bourbons into the night, and we were standing there with Samantha and Thomas and some other individuals. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. And we kept bouncing around with different ideas, being around maintenance, calling it nuts and bolts or, some other things. And then, a month or two later, enter Multifamily Mixtape. But Todd, it was actually you who said to me when I mentioned out loud, like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, you looked across the table at me over your glasses and you said, I guarantee anything you have to say will be more interesting than what's out there. And so that really kind of, you probably you may remember that, you might not remember that, but I remember it. And I said, okay, well there you have it. Todd Whitlow just told me to start a podcast. so here we are almost a year later, and I'm interviewing you, and this is great. But
I'm changing the story. I'm going to steal half your story now when I retell this. I'm going to be like, Todd told me I had to do it, and so
right. But so back when I was in high school, and I'm not going to ask how old the two of you are, but we had these programs where you could shadow other careers, and so you took a day or two, and you could sign up through your I can't remember who the person was at the school, but your guidance counselor or whatever, and you could say, these are the professions that I think I want to go into. And so, Todd, you put down late night TV host. I put down a radio DJ. I went to 107.3 Jams radio station here in Greenville, South Carolina, and sat in on some radio and what it meant to be a DJ, what it meant to actually broadcast. So like I got into or was thinking about radio very early. And, I was 15, 16, 17 years old, something like that when all this happened. But at the time, I did not. Podcasts were obviously nothing that anyone had ever heard of, but I think it's kind of just odd that here you are, right? Like you sort of manifested it into existence because of a conversation involving some beer. So
That's how most great conversations start.
right. Here, hold this. hold my beer.
And actually, to know what the podcast is going to be about, I mean, if you were with us most recently when we were at the Advocate Conference in DC, we probably did four episodes. I mean, we didn't record them, but like those are like what we just want to do. We want to replicate the conversations we have, in the hotel bars after a meeting and stuff like that, and talking about like the things that we see, what's going on, and having those additional conversations around the industry, but from an association perspective. And so you've actually, you're hosting this podcast, we're talking about it, but you've been on an unrecorded version of it quite a few times. So that's kind of what we're kind of looking to do.
Well, it only felt natural to have you on for a recorded version. So Todd, who's like, and both of you can answer, but like, who's your ideal audience? Who are you trying to reach with the associated?
I mean, really, it's anyone within the multifamily industry, but particularly those who participate, volunteer, run, lead associations, because it's about yes, it's about the industry, but it's really more about how the associations impact the industry and what associations need to do and look at as we're at this crossroads of new generations coming into the workforce, and the ways in which you motivate and engage and get volunteers participating, and you get leadership growth, and the way in which you communicate, all of those things are changing and evolving. And so really the audience is anyone who is interested in that. So it could be anybody from an association executive director to their government affairs team, to their education team, to presidents of those associations, or anyone serving as chairs of committees, to discuss really how to look at things in a different light, to figure out we can't just keep doing it the way that we've been doing it. I mean, volunteerism is at an all-time low, and you're now more at a 90-10 principle, as to where traditionally you were at an 80-20. So you've got 10% of the people doing 90% of the work, and you just got to figure out different ways to achieve it. And I think what we are looking at is trying to have discussions around that. We don't have all the ideas, but we do have all the questions. So the point of our guests is to answer the questions.
Right. Bryan, you got anything to add to that?
No, I'm usually spot on. And the other thing is, it's giving an opportunity for people to learn new ideas, new tricks, new approaches, different things that are doing something that may be working in California. That's a really great idea that they're doing, that someone may pick up in Massachusetts, and kind of pick up that kind of stuff. And someone that have those different conversations, and then have the honest conversation about, like Todd said, like what we're doing now is not going to continue to work in the future. We have to evolve. We have to change. I mean, we say things like, it seems like it could be a taboo thing, but when we say that management companies are turning into associations, right? And that, so people say that in the background, and we know that's not true, because the management companies aren't turning into associations. They're the members. They are the association. What they're doing is their business is evolving. And so the association's business also needs to evolve. And so we don't compete with our members, because we can't, because we are our members, right? And so have those conversations of what does that look like? How do we figure out what that next is, and have those conversations that we're kind of having on the side table, and just bring it into a forum where other people can listen to it and participate.
Nice. I recently had I did an episode with my friend Chris Caramonica with Wynn Residential, and we were talking about why it's important for people to be involved in their local apartment associations. For whether it's for professional growth or personal growth, or just being networking, or just being a part of something bigger than than yourself. So to me, it just kind of sounds like, just what you said earlier, and how you were describing your audience and what you wanted to do. Anybody who is involved or wants to be involved with associations, the associated podcast is going to be for them. But so are you going to have guests on? Is it just going to be the two of you recapping things? How are you envisioning this going?
We're always going to have a guest. So it's going to be a guest, and it will be very similar to this, except instead of Todd and I answering questions, we'll be asking the questions and then going off somebody who's like, hey, what are your thoughts, stuff like that. And also one of the things we want to get the fun stories. Like everyone has all these fun association stories, like when they went to this or do that. And so we want to pull out some of those fun stories and kind of talk about it. When I see the association, I talked this with one of my associations recently, and I said, we're two associations right now. We're this old, established, everyone's worked, some people are getting burned out association. And we're this startup where people don't understand why they need to be involved in the association or what they need or what the association does. And I go, and we have to run both of them, but we really have to start concentrating on the startup, because we have to start from the beginning. There's a whole generation of people who showed up and participated in the association because someone told them to, or because that's just what you did. And then there was a whole generation who's like, I'm just not going to do that. And like, why do I need to do this? And so it was never really explained. It was always just assumed. So we need to go back and start saying, hey, here's why. And then we also have to go, but what do you want? And that's the big question is, what do you want from the association? And I think that's one of the big things that we're going to explore into, because it goes hand in hand within the industry.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And, I was involved, or I got involved back in the day when it was that old school. And I don't want to say it's not now. There's still bits and pieces of it, but it was 90% that old school. It was the same people all the time running everything. Nothing ever changed. And it took a shakeup in our local apartment association to get people to open their eyes to say like, oh, this is what an association should be. And a lot of that really went into play when we did some shakeup within our board of directors and how committees were going to be handled. There were a lot of things where staff was managing all decisions, all this, all that. And it's like, well, what's the point of having a committee? What's the point of having people on the committee making decisions if we can't do it? So we put some things into place and said, okay, committee, you want to do it? It's now on you. But if it fails, it's on you. And so it's that's part of how I'm taking what you said about trying to change it into the new way. I mean, that's how I took what you just said, but was there something specific you may have meant by that? Or?
One of the things as you talked about failure in this is that, I looked at an older committee, a different group, and said, hey, you guys, you always say no because it didn't work. And this group didn't get the opportunity to fail and learn like you did. So you're robbing them the opportunity to fail. And they're like, well, that's not really. I'm like, yeah, they need to understand why it doesn't work, because they think they can do it better than you, and maybe they can. And I will tell you that is a terrible thing to recommend, because then the event fails and everyone looks at each like, why did we do this?
Yeah, and it gets like, oh, I remember, because I will now never let anyone do this again. Yeah.
But it's important that a whole group that went through it, right? That's that startup piece. They learned. They're now understanding like, okay, this didn't work, and here's why it didn't work. And sometimes it does work.
Yeah. I mean, so the idea is to have a guest on each episode. That will be the majority of it. There may also be additional segments, whether there's anything trending from a government affairs or a legal standpoint. Obviously, that piques my interest, and it's something that we want to share and get out there and get out there, not in a context of legalese that people just goes right over their head, but try and boil it down to some lay understanding, whether that's through a parable, whether that's through a metaphor, or whether that's just straight explanation of it, just to give a fun twist on it to make it a little bit more understandable or digestible by those who aren't in the legal field.
Sure. I actually heard an attorney tell, he wasn't talking directly to me, but I was in the room when he was talking, and someone said legalese. And the attorney that was there turned around, looked at him and said, please never say that word. Like it is like it's a like it offends me, like when you say legalese. Like I'm a professional. I I use all the proper terms. And so when you legalese, it's like you're dumbing down my work, and is that an offensive word to attorneys?
Unlike most attorneys, I do not have a stick up my backside, so no, it does not offend me. It does not offend me in the slightest.
Yeah, I'm just curious because you said it. So I was going to stay away from legalese. I was not going to say it, but you brought it up, so I figured it was pretty safe to to go down that road. But speaking of legislation, I saw some stuff coming through today that South Carolina State, the House Judiciary, was going to be looking at the domestic violence bill. So that's good. I mean,
that is good. I mean, it's something that has been needed for a considerable amount of time. I mean, I think the South Carolina Apartment Association put a solid amount of work into it last year, and it got held up, and it's finally moving. And I believe it is working its way to the House floor for a vote. And so I think that's certainly a step in the right direction. South Carolina is a weird legislative jurisdiction because it just takes one person putting their name on a bill and then it just comes to a screeching stop. So the hope is that you can keep it moving along and that it gets through the House and gets to the Senate floor and gets passed, because it provides some adequate protections to those who have been a victim of domestic violence.
Yeah, you guys got a really good team down there in South Carolina working on this. I've always joked, being in the North Carolina piece, and saying South Carolina politics confuses me and scares me. Those things have not changed in the 20 years that I've been here. And you have to just remember, South Carolina is where people run for president and the wheels fall off. So it confuses and scares a lot of people at a lot of levels.
Yeah. Maybe for another episode. maybe that's something you two can have on the Associated. But South Carolina politics, I tell you, it is wild. So, all right. So the idea came out for the Associated. The two of you talked. You agreed. You had Betsy come on for episode 0. Which came out last week, I think, is when I saw it. I don't know if it came out before that, but I think that's when I saw it. It was right as I was about to board the plane for Advocate. When can we see the Associated? When is it gonna come out, and how often? What's gonna be your release routine for episodes?
So we're going to release monthly, and we're going to do a little bit more because there's two of us, and both Todd and I have to get our good amount of talent in when we talk. So it's going to be a little bit more of a long form. So it wouldn't be surprising if some of our episodes are north of 40 minutes, closer to an hour sometimes, and some of that. And we'll cover a lot of different aspects of it. And so we're going to do larger podcasts than a shorter run at it. So we'll do the monthly pieces, and then we're talking about doing some fun stuff, because getting together, maybe doing some recording live stuff when we're all together, and exploring some different ideas like that.
Nice. So when can we see the first episode?
Oh yeah, that was the question, wasn't it? So we are on schedule to record the first episode this month, and it will drop at the 1st of May. So we're going to get it out right before May. It's logistics. One of the problems of having additional people on your podcast is, and you have to logistics a lot of schedules. And so when Todd sends you a list of all the days that he can't be on the podcast, no, I'm just joking.
I mean, we are going into a very busy time frame.
Yes, you are.
Between mid-April and mid-May. It is a bit bananas.
I think the email said, "I'm not good on days that end in Y."
Yeah, we managed to squeak it in there somewhere.
Yeah. So we're looking, and I think we're pretty close to getting everything kind of booked up. So our goal was, so you didn't miss it. Our goal was to launch right before Advocate and get that information out. And then we have North Carolina is having a conference in early May. And so our next goal is to get right for that. And then we'll do another one. And then, of course, something right before the NAA conference.
And Bryan, South Carolina is having a conference at the very beginning of May, immediately before the North Carolina conference.
So we got to move the deadline even up. So we're going to do this before the South Carolina conference, which sounds like I need to figure out how I'm going to work that in my schedule to be there. So,
It's May 6th and 7th.
is it?
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I've actually enjoyed the South Carolina conferences since we started them. What, Todd? This is year 4.
I believe so. I think that's right. I mean, they used to have like a half-day legislative conference that they would have, either the AG's office or someone come in and speak for half a day, and then everyone would have lunch and then kind of walk over to the State House. And I think as part of the strategic plan going back, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, it may have been just immediately before COVID. They then implemented this plan to kind of make it a bigger event. And to be quite honest, and I don't think I'm the first one to say it. I think Donna Bolowitz would say it. I mean, South Carolina models its conference very much after North Carolina's, although this year we are not including a legislative component because the South Carolina State House just works differently than the North Carolina legislature. There's not frequently anywhere to meet or to plug and pull someone away. It's kind of chaotic, even more so than my experience with North Carolina's, where you can find people in their offices from time to time. And so we've kind of have pushed that aside, encourage people to have in-district meetings with their representative or senator, and most of the focus is going to be on educational content. But I mean, their goal is to get, I think, 400 registered attendees for this year.
It was at the South Carolina conference that really changed my perspective on the multifamily industry. It was one of my first years in there, and Ken Szymanski's like, "Here, I want you to go to this," because when I was working in the Charlotte Apartment Association then and still today, there's a county or two that are in the Charlotte Apartment Association. So I went down and sat there, and the speaker came up and goes, "You guys are the most powerful industry in the state, and you just don't realize how powerful you are. You have construction, you have employment, you have housing, you have all these factors that come together, and those are all individual industries of their own, and you're all together. And you guys, like, if you get organized and start thinking about it, you really have the power to really move some things." And then he said, "South Carolina politics is scary and confusing, so good luck." But it's true. I've always kind of carried that forward. I mean, there are so many aspects of, just on the engineering piece alone, that is an entire industry of itself that takes place within our industry. So it's really unique.
Oh, it's incredible. I was talking with another on another podcast. The turnover. We just recorded some new episodes this past weekend, and one of we each come up with a topic, but we don't tell the others what it's about. And so you mention it, and then they have to react instantly, and so it's just all hell breaks loose, right? And so we got to talking about the industry and how multifamily, when you think of multifamily, you think of that apartment community over there. You think of the maintenance person, you think of the office, because of because of certain branches of the government. You might think of the evil owners. So you have your perception of what multifamily is, but then you think about all the avenues, like to your point, Brian, you think about all of the other trades, all of the other industries, all of the other stuff that feed into multifamily, or into the service industry, the housing industry in general. Somebody decided one day at the very first apartment community ever built, they said, "You know what, we could help cut your grass. So enter the first landscape contract. Hey, I can help you paint your walls. Enter the first painter to painting contract. Enter the carpet. Enter any number of other trades." And now we keep expanding. I'm always meeting somebody new. I'm always meeting some new tech company, some new industry provider that's providing something that I never would have thought was relevant to what we do. Like, there are companies out there that now tell residents, "Hey, there's a notification on my phone. The parking spot directly across from my door is empty. I can go park there right now." Like, who would have thought about that? And it's wild at all of the different trades and all of the different just industry that come into multifamily. It's nuts.
And the interesting thing is our industry is on the cutting edge of AI.
Yeah.
Which I imagine is all you're talking about, Todd, with your clients and everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, we get questions about that all the time. I mean, and it's a matter of trying to figure out how to maneuver in that environment. I mean, I think what you just described, Mark, is the beauty of America. It is the entrepreneurial spirit that created the foundation of our country. And so, anytime you think you have thought of everything that could possibly service this industry, all of a sudden a new tentacle pops up, and there's something else that people are providing. It's kind of like I'm listening to the Steve Jobs book now, and he talked about the fact that consumers don't know what they want until you tell them. And so you kind of have to tell them. They're not going to sit around thinking about, hey, I really wish I had a service that could cover this particular need. No, you have to identify the pain point and figure out, okay, how do I make that easier for them? And if you can come up with that and you actually identify it and it clicks, you all of a sudden have a pretty hot commodity. And so it is always interesting to see. I mean, to get back to the power that is wielded by this industry, and getting rid of that image of, the mom and pop landlord, or someone who they only think about the maintenance person and the site team. Well, that maintenance person and the site team are running a small cruise ship with all the activities and amenities that are offered. Or you can look at it as really a small village or town of people that they are running a little fiefdom that they keep operational, that provides housing to people and suits many of their other needs. It's amazing to me that the perception that the industry has when you think about it within those contexts.
So we'll start to wrap this up, and I always like to ask the question, Brian. I've asked you this question before, Todd. You don't know what's coming, but if we'll let Brian go first, that way it gives you a second to formulate your response. But if, as an industry, as an industry that's currently plagued with, we're understaffed, we're overworked. AI is making a massive headway into our industry. One, I think, to alleviate a lot of the stresses that we have of being understaffed, overworked. But you've got people out there that are trying to determine what they want to do with their careers. Anyone I've ever talked to about the industry and how they made their way into the industry, they've always found it by accident. I have not met a single person to date who said, I chose multifamily as my career. So for those people out there, the young kids that are in high school or college who just don't know what they want to do, they're in some college doing some degree that they don't really care about, but it was there. It got them some scholarship money, whatever it was. And now they need to figure out what to do to go earn a living. Why would you recommend the multifamily space? Whoever wants to go first, jump in.
Go ahead, Brian.
All right, I'll go. One of the reasons I'd recommend the multifamily space, and what I think is unique about it, is multi. It actually means something different. There's so many different aspects of it, right? And so we've reached on it today a little bit, but what it has is that it has so many different career functions that are inside of it, which means that once you get inside of it, I love the cruise ship analogy. I love the fiefdom piece. Like you can just stay inside of it. And there's so many people. We always joke. It's like you don't leave the multifamily industry. You just pivot. And you're always moving one side or the other. And it's very rarely that people leave. And when they do leave, they're like, hey, I'm going to go work for this company. The next thing you know is that company ends up becoming a member because they want the access back into where it is. So I think one of the things is that for a long-lasting career, if you don't know what you want to do in this industry, you'll be able to figure it out and explore a lot of different pieces. Even just if you just start from the leasing side and you see everything that's going on, so many people have launched their career from leasing, and so there's just so many things from. Is that where you started your career, from the leasing side? Yeah, and you start there, and then you have on the maintenance side, you have all those pieces, and so we talk about AI. And one of the things that's not going away when AI comes and takes over all the roles and everyone's jobs, it's not taking away when you interact with people and the soft skills and the relationship. You're always going to have that at every job and every industry. So there may be AIs that take up aspects of the job, but you're going to actually have to have the soft skills. And so even like you look at like on the sales piece, AI can do sales, but AI can't do relationship building, right? AI can do lease management, but it can't it can't de-escalate a situation. AI can handle maintenance request forms, but it can't talk to the person inside of what actually the problem was to figure out, wait, you put what down the garbage disposal? So like you have to have those skill sets. And I think I think that's always going to be in our industry. And I think one of the things is it just allows you so many different aspects and avenues.
Yeah.
Beat that, Todd.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's a great answer. I think the first and foremost thing is if you're seeking to make it a career, which is certainly what it has to be. It can't just be a job. If you want to be successful at it, it has to be a career, which means that you're seeking ways to fulfill yourself, to grow, and you've got the one thing that I would encourage people about, and in which I talk to regularly, especially if I'm teaching a class with people who are new to the industry. I encourage them. This is a community. I mean, yes, it's a multifamily industry, but the industry itself is a community. And the more you expand your network, the better off you're going to be. I mean, to Brian's point, is very few people leave, and I think we've got a recent example of just how great of a community it is. When Rent had their series of layoffs as a result of their acquisition, I've never seen an outpouring like that on LinkedIn where other people were promoting other people's skills so that they could find a job. It's very few industries in which you're going to find that type of atmosphere or environment where the people legitimately care about the people that they work with and that they engage with and want to see succeed and advance. And it's just very rare that you can come across that. I mean, if you ask me why, I can tell you I found my way to this just by happenstance. But once I got a taste of the people and got the relationships building, to be quite honest, the law is what I tolerate so that I can do all the other stuff with networking and building relationships and doing all that. The law is really a sidebar to what we do in trying to build relationships. And so if you were asking me why someone should get involved in this industry and seek it as a career, you're never going to be more supported anywhere else in any other occupation or career that you could seek out.
Yeah, great answer. I appreciate it, and I love how everyone's got some different take on it. It's never the same. Multifamily, it means something different to everybody, and like you said, I just will echo what you said about Rent and the outpouring of support. And I mean, in an industry plagued with competition, competitors of this, and this, it's like, no, these are people first, and they're really good at what they do. And let's do what we can. Let's come together and let's just promote. And I love seeing all of those individuals that I knew personally posting, starting my new career, starting my new. And it's, I think it's just because that, our industry, we are in a service industry. I mean, we do care for our residents. We're not evil people. We want to keep people in their homes. We do not want to kick people out. That's not what we do. We do not get excited about things like this. But unfortunately, there's been some negative press about the way we tend to handle things, but we care, and I think that I think your analogy was spot on about our industry. Well, gentlemen, the Associated podcast, you heard it from these two. It will be out in May. Listen, I'll put it out there. I said it. So now you got to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be May. So absolutely. It's trust me, people are working on it. Gears are turning. So emails are being sent. So, hey, Mark, thanks for this. I mean, to Todd's point, it's like, hey, we're starting a podcast, and instead of like, oh my word, no more people in this space. Well, it's like, hey, come be on mine, right? And then right after that, like we haven't seen each other within a week, and you're like, hey, let's do this and record it. So it goes to Todd's point where this industry is just so inclusive. It's unbelievable. So thank you for allowing us to be your very first guest and to be the first person to promote the Associated. So.
Hey, Bryan, we're not his first guest, but this is our first time being guests.
I've already gotten into like our podcast routine here a little bit. Thanks for coming on to the Associated, Mark.
Okay, well, hey, listen, I guess you heard it here first. I'm the first guest on the Associated podcast. I'm kidding. But no, I really wanted to have you both on because I want to support anybody who's getting out there and talking about the multifamily industry. And knowing you two the way I know you two, I know the podcast is going to be great. I have subscribed. Like I'll be one of those that gets it once you hit done, publish. And I'm looking forward to it because I do value. Both of you, I value your expertise in the industry, and I think as a lifelong student, I want to continue to learn. And having you two on and talking about the things that you're going to talk about, it's only going to make me better. So I would encourage everyone that's listening to my podcast, if you subscribe to mine, find the Associated. Where can they find it, Bryan?
Oh, this is where I get to do a plug. Okay, I'll plug this. So the best place, or my favorite place to go, is on my website, which is cltprmanagement.com. And then you can / a pod or hit the pod button, and you can see all the videos, or you can see the different home pages. But we are on all the major podcast providers. And as Todd likes to say is, don't confuse us with the Associated Press. That's a different podcast completely. So we're just the Associated.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. I appreciate it. We're all excited. We're ready to tune in and listen to the Associated when it comes out. But in the meantime, thank you, everybody, for listening to Multifamily Mixtape. I will catch you on the next one. See you guys. Thanks again for taking time out of your day to listen to this episode. I hope you found it entertaining and insightful. If you like this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other industry podcasts and sponsorship opportunities. And until next time, don't be afraid to crank the volume.